We're told by sources inside and close to the White House, but outside yesterday, that some of these changes were imminent. A couple of the changes that have been talked about, there's an awful lot of chatter about this one. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Dr. David Shulkin, may be removed from his post. We are told by numerous officials in the White House and people outside that he has lost the confidence of the president to some degree based on the findings of an Inspector General's report, as well as the travel where he had taxpayers foot the bill to take his wife to Europe. He later reimbursed the Treasury for that. But the president has always made Veterans Affairs a real priority. And if he's got somebody in there who he doesn't think is managing it as well as it could be managed, then he might make a change. There were some rumors yesterday that Rick Perry, the Secretary of Energy, might be the replacement. But I'm told by White House officials that both the president and Perry have said he's not moving to the VA. So another name that is floating to the surface, one that will be very familiar to viewers of Fox News, Pete Hegseth, who used to be the CEO of Concerned Veterans of America and is well-versed in veterans issues and how to restructure the VA. Fox and Friends host. His name is making the rounds again here at the White House as a possible replacement for Shulkin. A couple of other items that may be in the offing sooner rather than later. H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, has been rumored to not have a great relationship with the president for a long time. There's a possibility he could leave, and that John Bolton, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, may take his place. When it comes to the VA, Sarah Huckabee Sanders earlier today was asked about any staff changes. Here's what she said.
I don't have any personnel announcements, but I can tell you that every day we're looking for how we can better the system, whether it's through policy changes or personnel changes, not just at the top level, but across the board. We've already made a number of changes within the personnel and made sure that we're looking at how we can best serve our nation's veterans.
But the president again saying that such talk about changes is a false story. But I'm told by some people that he's getting tired, Kimberly, of these daily stories of the drip, drip, drip of staff departures and the chaos, and better to rip the bandage off all at once, get it all out of the way, then regroup and keep going forward. Kimberly?
Okay, well, it seems a little bit like that, Gina.
We'll see.
John, thank you so much. All right, Dana, so lots of developments. We've been hearing kind of a steady stream of information about people that might be exiting the White House, different people that perhaps the president didn't feel that the relationship was gelling in the way, or perhaps it's just time to move on. So there's quite it's almost like a Broadway play at this point, but the cast of characters that keeps developing in terms of, who might be leaving, in what order, progression, and who the possible candidates and replacements are. From a communication perspective, what do you think of the way this is sort of being disseminated and handled, and how could perhaps they do it better?
Well, I think that every president should have people working for him or her that they can trust and that they have confidence in, and change is not necessarily bad. But from a communication standpoint, the easiest story to cover in Washington is personnel changes. And if you want to force the media to cover your accomplishments, then you're going to have to, serve them vegetables. But if you are serving up every day anonymous sources about somebody's in, somebody's out, and then having the president talk about it, then it is likely that they're going to eat dessert first. It's inevitable.
Okay, well, there we go. All right, Greg.
I guess it feels more like a business and less of a bureaucracy, because bureaucracy, you get pretty comfortable bringing your box of pictures and photos, put it on your desk. You can't do that with Trump. You don't know what's going to happen. I have to adjust my lens for the last 18 months of what this White House is like, and I guess in this Trump era, I will take staff chaos over, stylized videos of decapitations of Westerners and journalists. I mean, if this is the kind of news that we are covering, I don't mind it. I'd rather hear about the staff changes. It's to me, it's just part of life. It's better than seeing ISIS every day. I think this is progress.
Okay, all right, Jesse.
Well, you called it a Broadway play, and I put the cast into groupings because that's how I understand things. So you have the nationalists, the Bannon, Sessions, and the Millers. The businessmen, Cohn, Ross, Mnuchin, and Tillerson.
Yes.
The establishment, Reince and Spicer, we know what happened to them. You have the loyalists, Hope, Kellyanne, and Schiller. And then the brass, Mattis, McMaster, and Kelly. But the family, Ivanka and Jared, the only thing I can derive from that grouping is the family's ascendant, and they're not going anywhere. And in terms of the staff change, it looks very random. I don't know if you can really derive that much of a pattern there, but the pattern, to me at least, seems he's putting in place people that he trusts and that like him. It's very important for the people that surround the president to support the president's agenda, agree with the president's agenda, and then personally like the president. We've heard a lot of people that are kind of doing their duty and kind of rolling their eyes, and those leaks really, I think, hurt the president and do him a very big disservice. So he's consolidating the group of people that are around him. He still likes the diversity of opinion, still kind of that serves him well, but at the same time, he wants to have people that surround him, that agree with him and like him. And I think it's safe to say Kellyanne's safe, and Stephen Miller's safe, and Sarah Sanders is doing an excellent job. But Trump's all about change, and I don't think that's ever going to stop.
It's funny, your language, safe, like an episode of Survivor.
Yeah, safe.
Safe makes you the next
Tribal
week.
Council survived.
Okay.
Yeah, so we both picked up on the idea that you said this is like a Broadway play, and to me, it's not the Broadway play so much as reality TV. And if you want to get in the show, you have to get into like the Fox green room, because apparently that's the staging area to move folks in. But I would say,
Slow down on the hate.
well, that's not hate. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, like he says, oh, you journalists, fake news, no chaos here. It's obvious to everybody if you just open your eyes and take a look. I mean, this is 3 times the amount of change in Obama's first year, 2 times the amount of change in, let's say, Ronald Reagan's first year. I mean, we don't see things like this. And people come and go in a way that I think is a little unsettling.
I heard Kilmeade is going to be on the Supreme Court.
Adults in the room. And if there are adults in the room, it looks like the adults, people like McMaster, who's apparently on the gangplank, and Tillerson, and now even Kelly. The idea is, well, who are the adults? Instead, he's going to people who I think are like an echo chamber for him, who simply tell him, yes, man style, what he wants to hear. And that's a little unsettling.
All right. Ahead, the Broward County Sheriff's Office released a surveillance video that proves the officer assigned to protect Stoneman Douglas High School did not go inside while a massacre was underway. Back in a moment. Stay with us.
No, my sign is no. My number is no. You need to let it go. You need to let it go. Need to let it go.
We're getting a first look at some very disturbing surveillance video. The Broward County Sheriff's Office has released the footage from outside Stoneman Douglas High as the shooter began slaughtering more than 17 inside the school on February 14th. The tape confirms that Deputy Scott Peterson, the man assigned to protect the school, did not go inside while the massacre unfolded. So here's the thing. Kimberly, I want you to hear me out on this, because his lawyer, Joe DeRusso, says it's unfair to call him a coward, that he called in the shooting to the police department and then set up an outside perimeter, which is what the protocol established. On the other hand, people look at this, including the sheriff's department, and say his job was to go inside and confront the shooter. What does Kimberly Guilfoyle say?
Well, it depends. Each different, departments have different protocol about how they secure a perimeter, what they do in terms of when they receive an information, 911 call about responding to the scene, who's first on scene, securing the perimeter, and then approaching as information develops to go in. When you have an active, shooter situation, what's really important too is also what is the procedure at the school, and are they aware of what that, the procedure is and what they're supposed to do. So are people there holding in place? They want to make sure that they don't increase any other casualties. They want to identify location of the shooter. So you have to go in and you do a process by clearing room by room to be able to go identify, locate, and then eliminate or neutralize the shooter.
And Jesse, the sheriff, Scott Peterson, says basically that he gave the man the information, the protocol, and he should have handled it, and he didn't. It's not the department's fault. What does Jesse say?
Well, according to the protocol, which we have right here, it's not to set up a perimeter. The protocol says quickly engage the suspect, because every time you hear a gunshot, it says you have to assume that someone has been killed. They learned these lessons after Columbine. You do not set up a perimeter. You go in. If it's one person, you go in. If it's 2 people, you go in immediately and neutralize the shooter. He didn't do that, and he stood outside and he waited. And if you listen to his radio transmission, the radio transmission, he says, it could be firecrackers, but I believe it's gunshots, and it's coming from, I believe, building 2011 or 211. And that contradicts the statement that he released through his attorney, which said, oh, we thought the shooting was from somewhere outside. So why would you contradict yourself, and then why would you take up a defensive position outside the building that you heard the gunshots from? It doesn't make any sense, and You know, people are calling him the coward from Broward, and this is why. I don't know what was going through his head, but I mean, he should have gone in there.
So he
has
resigned,
nightmares about it.
Dana.
Yeah.
He's gone, but at the same time, there's lots of investigations. Where does this lead us?
Well, hopefully to better protocol, if that's what we need. And also, we talked yesterday about, would you rather break protocol and save somebody's life or risk somebody dying because you were so afraid to break protocol? And I think he knows he's the only one at the school that has a gun. And does he really think it's firecrackers inside? I mean, come on. Like, honestly, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Greg?
I return to the hypocrisy of Sheriff Israel, who sat up on that stage at CNN, knowing all of this stuff, knowing a lot of stuff, but marshaling the audience to attack evil Dana Lash and the NRA because that was the thing to do that could get the blame off him after missing all of those red flags and having an absolute viable way to prevent this from happening. And then when it does happen, not going in and trying to stop it. The media is devoted so much time to everything but the most glaring facts. We are enamored by the emotional aspects of this, but we overlook stuff like this. There are so many failures involved here, and there are a lot of solutions. There are two major solutions, and like I've said before, the database where you have a civil tag based on what officials at school and the police, when they see somebody who's law-abiding but there's something wrong, they can put them in the database. That's an offensive maneuver, and also the hardening of their schools, which will never be totally perfect. It'll never be perfect, but you can improve it, and that's metal detectors and a trained staff. So there are things you can do when you admit to yourself what the problems are. And there's a problem.
So you wouldn't talk about gun control?
We always talk about gun control.
All right.
We always do.
All right.
I'm talking about the facts now.
Yes, me too. Democrats have their work cut out for them in 2020. New buzz on their challenging hunt for a nominee. That's next.
According to The Hill, the newspaper, not the raised area of land, Democrats now think their next nominee need not be likable. He or she just needs to win. Which is funny. It's not like Hillary lost because of her sparkling personality. Back pain is more appealing. What they mean is they want a fighter, someone who can throw punches instead of retreating to Gwyneth Paltrow's flat to mainline quinoa. A fighter isn't polite or normal, but formal, but aggressive, blunt, and sometimes even rude, meaning they're looking for their Trump for two reasons. One, we may never return to the way things were before Trump. It's not enough to tie the perfect Windsor knot or make the most tasteful toast. You got to be interesting, funny, raw. But also, it seems likability means less when assessing effectiveness. Fact is, you didn't have to like Trump to admit he's doing a good job so far. Sure, the way Trump handled Tillerson, that lacked appeal. His approach to critics can make you wince. But the tax plan, the renewal of our military, the decimation of ISIS, it offers some optimism. You don't have to like the boss to admit the company's doing okay. So for the Dems, it may be time to nominate an adult with an actual plan, not simply a call for hope and change or an undergraduate's reliance on identity politics. A wish is no course of action, which explains why most places you find a Democrat in charge, you find an unholy mess. All right, Juan, go to you first. You agree with everything I had to say? Does the Democrats need like some kind of their correlation to Trump? They need their Trump.
Their Trump?
They need their Trump.
You mean a celebrity?
No, somebody that doesn't adhere to the typical traditional mode of a politician. Or maybe their Trump was already Barack Obama.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's how we have Trump.
Yes, that's right.
In fact,
that's
I
true.
read something the other day, Dana, that said that we are in a moment where you have to be like a cultural phenomenon in order to win the presidency. That doesn't speak well to parties or the structure or the establishment, but that would be one argument.
Yes.
To my mind, the big thing is here, especially after the Conor Lamb apparent victory in Pennsylvania, is that if the next election is a referendum on Trump, Trump loses. So he's got to dirty up the Democrats. So you need a Democrat who can, in fact, engage and be a fighter. And I think that's what's different, because going back to George W., people said that's a guy you want to have a drink with. You want to have a beer with him.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now Joe Biden, who would be at the top of the Democrats' list at the moment, is a guy you want to have a beer with. But you need a guy who's willing to get down and dirty with Trump.
Right, and Joe might not have the energy, Jesse, to keep up.
Yeah, he'll be older than I think President Trump at the time. I don't think Joe wants it. But it's very difficult to defeat an incumbent president. It's only happened a few times in the last couple decades. You had Bill Clinton, who was extremely talented and kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And then you had Jimmy Carter one term because basically the whole world collapsed and gas prices were high and he was a pathetic mess. And Reagan came along just at the right time. So I don't think they have a chance at defeating him. I think it's going to be a lot closer than it was in 2016. But they do need someone that can throw haymakers with President Trump. But they have to do it in more of an aspirational way, because if you get in the mud with Trump, you're going to get dirty and you're going to get bruised up, and it's going to be tough to recover. Elizabeth Warren's not going to be able to do it. Kamala Harris, Booker, Bernie, I just don't think they have the innate talent. You can't just draft someone out of the blue. Talent has to bubble up and arise from somewhere within the country. And if I'm looking at the list here, and I have a whole long list of Democrats, I don't see anybody with even small amount of talent compared to this president.
It's interesting, though. You know, Dana, they did find Obama. He was kind of drafted, right?
Well, he gave the speech at the Democratic National Convention in 2004, and everyone went and said, "Whoa, who's that?" And then, 3 years later, he's the nominee. That's I don't know if he was drafted so much as in some ways he was a phenomenon, and he was the opposite. Often people go for opposites, but you mentioned Bill Clinton and how he did well. One of the things that helped Bill Clinton so much is that he lost his congressional majorities in the first midterm. And then he worked with the Democrats, and then people were like, oh, actually, we kind of like this guy. I'm not saying that's going to happen in this case, but also the Democrats benefit this year because there is no one face of the party, just like Republicans benefited in 2010 when there was no one face. So they were fighting against the president, not just one person. That changes soon after they choose a nominee.
Kimberly, who do you think is the feistiest Democrat? Like, who's the one that will, like...
Well, the feistiest, in my opinion, would be Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she loves to battle him, and they do, like, Twitter battle. Like, it's like Battlestar Galactica beats Twitter. So, but she's saying that she's not going to run now. So he's going to be up against, the thing is, the number of people. I think there'll be, like, 15 or 16. It's going to be, like, the redux of when the Republicans all ran, and then who's left standing. So I think everybody's going to try and throw their hat in, especially since there isn't any Clinton family member blocking the spot. So it's kind of wide open race to see who qualifies.
And just one more thing. John Kerry tried to imitate Bush when he was, I served in Vietnam, reporting for duty. I don't think that works. I think you have to go with authenticity and someone the opposite.
Well, I think he tried that too because we were a nation at war right after 9/11.
And that's what they wanted.
Hey, wait a second. It worked for Conor Lamb, Marine.
Yeah, but Conor Lamb was closer to Trump than to Pelosi.
No.
Yes. No, he kind of said that.
Well,
anyway, I mean, his policies were closer to Trump than Pelosi.
Well, he was for tariffs.
Yeah.
He was for unions. I mean,
All right, enough of this. Sean Penn, remember him? He used to act. Well, he wrote a new book with a Trump-like president. Can you guess the plot? That's right back.
Kathy Griffin did it. Johnny Depp did it. Now Sean Penn, the latest celeb to allude to assassinating President Trump. He penned a new novel coming out later this month, and according to reports, the main character calls for murdering a president. All right, the left's fascination with assassination, Greg. What do you think drives this?
I think it's it's sad because he used to be kind of a creative guy. But he's not anymore. He's not very interesting. He's not very innovative, and this is his way of being shocking. Which, as you can see, people have done this before. He's become very dull, very old, and very predictable. He thinks he's a Hell's Angel, but he's like the bass player from the Cars for Kids ad.
Thanks for getting that stuck in our head.
Yes.
You think so? To Greg's point, is this
it's
way to shock?
Yes, I think way to shock, but also it's a way to deal with the rage that they feel because they are so everything is out of their control. But also, remember, they do like to shock. Remember, it was years ago when they had. Was it The Walking Dead or something where they had the character of George W. Bush and they had like his head, they took
Game
the
of
head
Thrones.
off at Game of Thrones. And it's just a way to, I guess,
to get it all out.
But they should just go for a walk instead.
Okay.
Walking's good.
Juan, are you going to buy the book?
Listen to a podcast.
No, I mean, the title of the book is pretty wild. Bob Honey, Who Just Do Stuff. I mean, like, I was, like, puzzled by this title. And then I'm told that Bob Honey is a septic tank cleaner. And that the Trump character is called Landlord. So there's all sorts of allusions in there, but they don't work for me. And guess what? I think this guy's a 2-time Oscar winner, big name. And, boy, is there an audience for his, you know, criticism of Donald Trump. This could do well.
Do you think it's going to sell, Kimberly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed in Sean. I don't like
You guys are on a first-name basis?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So, yeah, no more.
No more?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think this is appropriate, and I don't like anything that even suggests, like, violence in that way, because somebody could take someone up on it, and I think it's suggestive, it's improper, and I don't know if there's any need for it. I mean, I guess he's been consistent about his feelings as it relates to the president.
All right. One more thing, up next.
It's time now for one more thing, so I'll begin, because you remember that wonderful place from your childhood, or the place that Greg still likes to go and play in the aisles and the hallways of Toys R Us, Greg, where all the things are at your height?
Those were the days.
So it's perfect. Well, after 60 fun-filled years, the toy giant Toys R Us announced it'll be closing all 800 of its toy stores, which is very sad. The retailer filed for bankruptcy earlier this year amid increased competition from Amazon, Target, and Walmart, and it struggled to pay down $1 billion in debt. So that's a big problem.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get to my one more thing. I don't like Toys R Us because anytime you ever wrote something with a backward R, their lawyers would contact you.
Really?
Yes, they did it to me.
Trademarked?
Yeah, they did it to me.
No, I mean, this is actually a sad moment for millions of children.
And you make it about yourself.
No, it's blame Amazon. Blame Amazon. People are getting their toys from Amazon.
Online. Okay.
All right, let's blame another company. Uber. Okay, Uber's creating a bike sharing program. So, you know, like City Bike, when you can have an account, you have the docking station. Well, this is different in that you can just leave your bike anywhere. Okay? And so this is not realistic. And these bikes are being stripped of their parts. In China, there's like entire bike share graveyards that have appeared. Massive piles of bikes discarded like trash. And I don't like it. I don't like it.
There you go.
All righty, Juan.
Happy 85th birthday to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't know if this is good news for Republicans or Democrats. Ginsburg sits on a court with one other person over 80, Justice Kennedy, another Justice Breyer about to turn 80 in August, and everybody's thinking, well, maybe President Trump will have another Supreme Court appointee. But Ginsburg, no sign of slowing down. She's a cultural icon, affectionately nicknamed RGB, the subject of blogs, T-shirts, coloring books, and there are 2 films being made about her, a documentary and a film on the basis of sex. She says she's going to do the job as long as she has full steam. So full steam ahead.
Do you mean gender?
Gender, not sex, right?
No, it says on the basis of sex is the name of the
All
movie.
right, Jesse, quick.
Okay, well, Greg thinks robots are taking over the world. He thinks robot dogs are going to be in, like, every home, and they're going to do everything. Well, I found a way to defeat them. You put a banana peel on the floor. They're not going to take over anything.
You're
That's
really
how you
against
neutralize the robots taking over. They slip on a banana peel.
Robot PETA is going to come after you.
Sorry, Greg, just one more thing instead of 3 today. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't plan on doing one because I didn't think I'd have enough time.
What about the podcast?
Oh, but go on my podcast with Kevin Williamson. You can go check that
What are you
out.
having for dinner?
I think I'm going to have Chinese food.
Did you get any good recommendations the other night when you asked?
Yes, a lot of people on Atkins. A lot of people on Atkins. I'll tell you that. They gave me a lot of good tips.
Ribs?
Ribs.
All right.
Nothing but ribs.
Okay, never miss an episode of The Five. Special report up next. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Kimberly, thank you. This is a Fox News alert.
Comprehensive update happening now on South Florida's news station. Let's listen.
Tech listening equipment trying to hear any sounds under the bridge from anyone trapped underneath the rubble. Just days after the 950-ton span was installed over the busy stretch of Southwest 8th Street, the unthinkable has happened. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Belkis Nuray.
I'm Craig Stevens. Officials say at least 8 vehicles were crushed in that collapse, and we have Team 7 coverage. We're going to begin with 7 News reporter Rosh Lowe. He's on the scene for us. Rosh.
And let me set the scene for everybody at this hour. I'll step out of the way, and you can get a live look here on Southwest 8th Street, and you can still see that it is an extremely active scene. 8 trapped vehicles, 8 victims to the hospital. This bridge collapsing around 1:30 in the afternoon. Let's get to live pictures of 7 Skyforce HD, which will give you an enhanced view of what is going on right now. And what is happening at this hour is that Miami-Dade Fire Rescue has brought in large tactical units. We've seen several excavators going in there, trying to get rid of all that rubble so they can get beneath it to find out exactly if anyone is buried beneath all of that cement. Let's get to our video now. We spoke about the crushed cars, and this will give you a good idea of what the scene looked like as this bridge, which was recently installed just this past weekend, as a matter of fact, to help people traverse a very busy Southwest 8th Street, comes crashing down. We also have another piece of video, and this comes from 7 Skyforce HD, and this can show you the people on the ground who were injured. Now, the big question right now are the numbers. How many people have lost their lives? How many people are injured? At this hour, officials are not going to give an exact number until they can sift through all of the rubble. We spoke to a bunch of witnesses. Let's take a quick listen to what they had to say.
Like an explosion. It was like, I don't even know how to say it. It was loud. It sounded like a bomb, like multiple bombs in one. It was like terrible. It was super loud. It sounded like the world was ending. And when you look back, all you see is the bridge on the floor. It was awful.
The cops just literally just threw me out. I ran to see they needed help. I saw cops carrying people and people were injured. And then when I looked closely, cars are just squished.
And I started crying and crying because there's people there. It could be a family. It could be, it's human. The scary thing about it is that we were right. I'm traumatized because we were in the light. We turned a left, and that's when it happened when we were around here.
And I saw the bridge collapsing onto, I saw the black car first, and there was a young lady in pink, and she got out and she was screaming. I think someone must have been in the back of her car. And the gentleman that works at the restaurant, I just saw him run across to aid her. But the worst part about it was just the fact that, you know, you don't know what to do. I called 911, and when I called, they didn't even know what I was talking about. They're like, a bridge by FIU? I said, yeah, 109th and 8th. And she said, the new bridge.
I want to get to this photograph right now, which was sent to me by an eyewitness. Just imagine driving down Southwest 8th Street, and this picture really can bring you right into the scene, and this bridge collapsing. Think about being in one of those cars right near the bridge, or unfortunately under that bridge. Let's get to this statement from FIU. It reads, "Dear members of the university community, we are shocked and saddened about the tragic events unfolding at the FIU Sweetwater pedestrian bridge. At this time, we are still involved in rescue efforts and gathering information. We are working closely with authorities and first responders on the scene. We will share updates as we have them." So we'll bring it back out here live to our live pictures on Southwest 8th Street. Still a very developing situation because you need to get all those tactical units in there. You need to get rid of all this debris. They are not giving us a number, once again, of casualties because they simply don't know at this hour. Only thing they will tell us, this is a very serious situation. They'll be out here throughout the night. We're live in Sweetwater. Rosh Lowe.
Our thanks to Rosh Lowe and the whole 7 News team that's on scene there in South Florida. We have our own cameras, of course, on scene, and I want to show you something that's happening right now. I want to take you right over here to the big wall where authorities have just put a search dog has just gone in underneath this bridge. This is a spot just on the side. There's a crushed vehicle underneath, and the authority have sent the dog in to see if they have found someone who may be alive. In just the last 30 seconds or so, there's a little bit more movement, and the hope is that they'll be able to effectuate a rescue here at some point. These pictures are a condensed shot from across the way, and we're hopeful that they may be able to save somebody. It's going to be a very, very difficult task this afternoon. It's been more than 3 hours now since the bridge collapsed, and we're still waiting to find out if anyone is underneath there and still alive. Our correspondent Phil Keating is South Florida based for us and is live on scene as well. Phil, so much work to be done as they try to pull someone out of there.
Absolutely, and they are actively in search and rescue mode, as they discussed here at the first press briefing, that concluding with so many unanswered questions remaining, they still can't say how many people have been reported missing by friends and loved ones who may have been in the area driving down Southwest 8th Street when this happened, and they can't get a hold of them. A total of 8 cars were crushed underneath the bridge, and of course all of those carcasses of cars still remain underneath it. Unclear whether all of the drivers, all of the passengers within those cars have been pulled out, but a total of 8 people have been pulled out of the rubble, taken to local hospitals. According to the authorities here, 2 of them came from cars. So there could be a lot more people still alive, or perhaps clinging to life still underneath that rubble, and that is the working theory that search and rescue crews are working with. There's at least 100 technical advisors and extrication experts when it comes to the construction industry and dealing with concrete, especially when concrete collapses. They're all over there. Heavy equipment has been arriving here in the past hour, as we can see. Big, large backhoes. They've moved the big red crane out of there. That red crane had been on the scene because this pedestrian walkway really was not open to the public yet. So it was just put into place after being constructed elsewhere on Saturday. So it was spanning all 8 lanes of Southwest 8th Street, which is one of the busiest roadways in the metropolitan area of Miami. So pick a city with a major artery. This is one of those, and it is constantly full of cars and traffic, a lot of traffic lights. It's a big east-west funneler to the suburbs out behind me and into downtown behind the camera. Shep.
Phil Keating on scene at the Information Center. This picture at which you're looking, we hope this is going to be a rescue. I mentioned they sent a canine in to see if there were signs of life in there, and our producer Heather Lacey is with this camera and its operator as we watch this scene here. Heather, describe what you've seen, if you could, for our viewers.
Sure. So probably about 20 minutes ago, I saw a dog. They released the dog. It went under the bridge. The firefighters have sort of been gathering in that area where you can see them right now. If you look at the picture from the other side, you can see 3 or 4 of these cars that are sort of caught under there. I'm hearing a lot of noise. It sounds like grinders, like they're trying to cut through some of the rebar in there. And there's just a big gathering of the firefighters right there. So I'm not sure what's going to come out. Not sure even what's happening under there.
So, but you're hearing noises that indicate they're trying to get to something.
Definitely. There's definitely grinding noises that have been intermittently coming out from under there.
You know, it's Heather, from our perspective, I don't know how much better perspective you have than we do, but can you tell if there's enough space under there where there might be a cavern, there might be a void where someone could be alive? We heard one of our viewers was telling us about seeing a little boy in the back of a vehicle and not able to get to that child.
Yeah, so, you know, there is space enough under there where if you were very, very lucky, you wouldn't be completely crushed. It's probably about 2.5 feet. You can see the firefighters sort of kneeling down. And then on other parts of the bridge, that area where they are, they're right in front of a truck. So if I had to guess, I would say they're trying to do something with that truck. There's other areas that are to the left and to the right that are either more crushed or less crushed. So it's really, really hard to say, but you can see that there are pockets where there could possibly be people. It's just so hard to say, as you said.
Well, you have a broader view, obviously, because you're on scene. For us, we only see this one spot. Are there authorities at different points along this collapsed bridge where they're doing something similar, or is this the one spot?
From my angle, excuse me, there's a chopper overhead. From my angle, this is the concentration of activity that I can see is right here. I don't see, further down on the bridge towards that's further away from me. I don't see a concentration of firefighters there. really seem to be targeting this particular area.
I want to
And
show
as I
them.
said,
I want to show our viewers. Hang with me, Heather. I want to show our viewers. Well, darn. WSVN was just showing some video that they had of another portion there. There are areas, as we can see, where the bridge is very much at an angle, and vehicles, had they been there, would have been able to just drive away, like on the right-hand side here, as our viewers can see. But there's some areas where it looks like the bridge and the pavement are